Hey guys, it's TechRain here. In today's video, we're going to answer a very important question for streamers and live streaming in general. What is the best thing you can use to encode your stream to go live to Twitch, Kick, or pretty much any platform out there? Are AMD GPUs the best thing you can use for a budget GPU to encode your stream, or is it just honestly better to go with Nvidia since they have the NVENC encoder? Which one of these have better encoders for streaming? That's the question we're going to answer here today. Because if you guys do not know, I did a video recently covering the AMD GPUs to find out if their video encoders are good for streaming, and my results by using the RX 6600 is that this is a $200 GPU. Very good price point. Its encoder was able to actually game and stream to Twitch with no issues, which was awesome. Is going cheaper for your GPU better for streaming and encoding in general, or is it better to go with an Nvidia GPU since they've been around longer and had the NVENC encoder and they've been actually crushing it for live streaming in general? That's the question we're going to answer here today. So what we're going to do is we're going to pin up the RX 6000 with 8 gigs of VRAM against the 2080 Super, which also has 8 gigs of VRAM. And they both have dedicated encoders which are separate from the GPU's performance. The only thing they actually do is grab VRAM from the GPU, and usually it's not a significant sum. So I'm curious to see like which one will look better in the long term to actually invest into if you are looking to get a GPU for your stream PC or just for streaming in general. So let's get into it. Now, before we get into our testing, I want to go over the settings we're using for OBS. So first of all, for AMD, we are going to be using the AMD hardware encoder, the H.264, with a bitrate of 6000 streaming to Twitch with quality settings, profile, and high. Now for our video settings, we will be using 1080p for the output canvas and also for the base canvas for the monitor. And then there will be no downscale filtering at all. The only thing we will have is of course 60 FPS, and that's it. So first up, we tested a CBR 6000 for very low settings on Apex Legends. Now, with my testing, I found with AMD GPUs that they encode the stream really good for their actual bitrate. The problem with them is it seems that the more you put, the higher the load on the GPUs for gaming, the more blurry the product can actually get. But when you're standing still and stuff, you won't really see that blur as much, but you can't see the particle effects when you are moving around. Besides that though, the AMD GPUs did a really good job of encoding the stream on a single PC setup, which I was very surprised about. However, we did drop some frames during our testing. It wasn't really notable though, because most of them were like, once we started up OBS, we lost like 12 frames. That happened sometimes. That actually happened with the Nvidia for testing, where it dropped 24 frames as soon as we load up OBS, which won't impact you while you're streaming or recording because you haven't hit go live or record yet. But for AMD later on, it did drop like another 13 frames, but it wasn't really that impactful to the video, and I didn't really notice it when I was going back to check the footage. So I'd say this is good. So for our output settings for Nvidia for streaming, we of course going to be using the video encoder, the Nvidia NVENC encoder H.264. That's the hardware encoder. We will be doing CBR 6000 and quality good and high for tuning, and then for our multi-pass, 2-pass quarter resolution. Now keep in mind, the only reason we're doing this setting is because it was defaulted to it and I started streaming and I didn't think to fix that. If I would recommend anything, always stream with 2-pass full resolution. Just something I want to point out there, but our profile will be high. Now, for video settings, our course 1080p for base canvas, for output canvas 1080p, and then there's no downscale and 60 FPS. So our first test with the Nvidia GPU was maxing out everything on Apex Legends to the highest settings possible. Now, keep in mind, we did have Nvidia Reflex enabled and stuff, but that doesn't particularly matter too much. I was expecting though, when we have everything on ultra settings, to have a little bit more blur in the quality of our footage. But that wasn't actually the case, because AMD had the problem where more load we put on the GPU, the more blurry the footage would get. But if you kept everything on low, it looked really nice. Now, that could be accounted for a few things. Maybe the encoder is getting overloaded because we put too much load on it, or it could be just because we're comparing like a high-end GPU to a low-end GPU. But at the end of the day, it's a separate encoding part of the GPU. I think it's because the encoder itself for Nvidia is somewhat better than the actual AMD encoder. Now, the only reason I'm pointing this out is because I've worked with multiple pieces of footage, and I can just kind of see the difference between the two, and the crispness between the guns or the movement and stuff, and how it doesn't look as like buggy or blurry or flaky even. That doesn't mean it seems to be the case. Now, when we did change everything to low settings for Apex Legends, it was pretty much a night and day difference between the AMD encoding and also the Nvidia encoder. It just absolutely dominated when it comes to low settings and just absolutely crushing it. So yeah, AMD is good at encoding for its price point, but the crispness to it isn't entirely there. Not saying that it's bad, but I do feel like if you're looking for quality, it's not entirely there. Just to make sure I'm not biased because I prefer using Nvidia GPUs, I asked 2 of my family members to compare both pieces of footage to decide which one they think looks best. I got 2 pieces of footage to show you. Here's A and B. I want you to decide which one looks better to you. So do you think A was better or B?
B.
B looks better? Okay, thank you for your opinion. Is there a reason like why you think it looks better?
I don't know. Could have been the lighting too. I don't know.
I have 2 pieces of footage to show you. Which one looks better? This is A and B. So here's A.
Okay. I mean, that looks good.
How about this?
Well, what's the difference? That one looks a little bit less washed out. The first one feels like a little washed out.
Okay, thank you for your opinion.
Okay.
My brother and father both picked Nvidia for their encoder for encoding the video, and actually it turned out pretty good too. I would say I'm not surprised about this just because Nvidia has always been a great job when it comes to like DLSS, encoding video, and just like everything in general. So AMD was one of those things like I heard rumors about the GPUs being weird and stuff like that. Did the testing, found out they're very good, and I'm very happy with the results from encoding on this actual GPU. But I do feel for like Nvidia just has a better encoder. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you think Nvidia did better or AMD? Because honestly, I could recommend an AMD GPU now just because the price point and for the budget for budget gamers. If you were looking to game and stream on them, you might not have the crispest stream ever, but it would be a watchable stream at the end of the day. But if you guys did find this video interesting or even helpful, you know what to do. Make sure to smash the like button and get subscribed so you don't miss some future tech content, because we've got some PC builds planned here. So if you don't miss out any of that stuff, definitely get subscribed.